This hot sauce is made from humble ingredients that we're giving some special treatment in order to bring out their best, including roasted habaneros that are going to make it seriously hot. It's gonna get pretty spicy in the kitchen, if you know what I mean. So if that sounds good to you, let's get adventurous. Now, apart from the spicy stuff, the main building blocks of this sauce are corn on the cob, onion, and lime. And like any good sauce, these main ingredients will come together and form something that's more than the sum of its parts. Corn is definitely going to be the star of the show today, so I'm starting off with a couple of cobs. Actually, make that 3 cobs. Whoops, yeah, I can't juggle. It looks like I could handle 2 okay, but maybe I don't quite have the coordination for a 3-way. And anyway, we don't want to get too excited just yet. Before we get too carried away, let's put on some protection. Ah, that's better, and now it's time to get shucking. So corn cobs are naturally covered with this hair called silt, and nobody's going to want to get that hair in their mouth, so we're going to have to thoroughly remove that before we make the sauce. Now the bulk of it can be removed fairly easily, but as you can see there's always a few bits that get left behind. Now there's a handful of different techniques you can use to get rid of this, but the method that I find easiest is simply rubbing them off. Now you don't want to go straight in and raw dog it, you're going to want to use a piece of paper towel. And in addition to that, you also don't want to go in dry. The friction will do more damage than good. So we'll start by getting things nice and lubricated. And now that we've got things nice and wet, to remove those last few hairs, we're going to vigorously stroke it until we get them off. And there we go, now that's looking nice and clean. Huh, looks bigger with the hair removed. And speaking of size, this looks like it might be a little bit too big to handle comfortably, so I'm cutting it down to a size that might be a little bit more comfortable. There we go, nice and small. Did I say small? I meant, average? Yeah, I'd say average. To get a nice charred and smoky flavour happening, I'm grilling all the vegetables under the broiler. To make sure I'm getting a good char on both sides of the corn, without needing to rotate it halfway through, I'm cutting the cobs in half. Next up, I've got 1 large brown onion, and I'll start by cutting that in half. So I'm just going to top and bottom that before peeling. And then I'm putting that alongside the corn ready to roast. Here I've got some red habaneros. I usually grow my own, but these ones are from the supermarket. I'm not sure if they're going to be quite as spicy as the homegrown ones, so I'm not entirely sure how hot the final sauce is going to be, so stay tuned to the end of the video to find out. So to prepare those, I'm just cutting them in half and removing the seeds. If you want to leave the seeds in, that's totally fine too. And then I'm putting all of that under the broiler until it starts to blacken and get a nice deep char. This will really help to concentrate and develop the flavors and give it a nice smoky edge. Now keep a close eye on these because they will cook at different speeds. And while we do want them a little bit charred, we don't want them completely burnt. So as you can see, after a few minutes, my habaneros have started to blacken and blister. They're looking pretty good, so I'm going to take those out and put the rest of the vegetables back in to continue browning. So after another few minutes, it looks like the corn's getting some nice colour and the onion's starting to char as well, but really only on the outside layer. The underneath still looks a bit undercooked. So at this point, I'm removing everything that looks like it's done, but I would like to get a little bit more colour on that onion. I've hit it with plenty of heat from the top, so now I'm going to flip it over and hit it from the back. There we go, I think they're done. So now I'm putting the charred onions and the habaneros in a saucepan ready to continue cooking while we strip the corn. So to do this, I'm just sliding a knife down close to the cob to get all the kernels off. They're all going into the same pot, and then we're going to spice things up even further. To add some really wonderful complementary flavors, here I've got 1 teaspoon each of ground cumin, oregano, and smoked paprika. And also to boost the sweetness of the corn a little bit, I've got 4 teaspoons of brown sugar. And then to boost all of the flavors and keep things nice and savory, I've got a teaspoon of table salt. And then in order to cook it all out, I'm adding 3/4 of a cup of apple cider vinegar and 3/4 of a cup of water. Now that's given us just enough liquid to cover the vegetables. That'll be perfect for cooking them out, but we may need to add a little bit more liquid later when we blend it to make sure that we get a nice saucy consistency in the end. Then I'm going to bring that to a boil, then reduce it to a medium-low heat and let it cook away for about 10 minutes. Once all the vegetables look nice and tender, we're going to transfer those into a blender. If you've got an immersion blender, that'll work just fine too. I'm just giving this an initial blend to break everything up and mix it all together, and then I'll give it a taste and start making some adjustments to make sure that we get the right consistency and balance of flavor. And right now it's still looking pretty chunky and it definitely needs a little bit more brightness and zing. But thankfully I've got a lovely pair of plump limes that are just begging to be squeezed. So I'm giving a nice firm squeeze to both of those juicy cheeks. So all in all, the juice of 2 whole limes, and then to increase the tang even further, another 1/4 cup of apple cider vinegar, and then blend that through to mix. At this stage it was still looking a little bit too thick, so I made some further adjustments by adding more water and vinegar to get the right balance of consistency and acidity. So I did end up adding about a 1/4 cup of water, 1/2 cup of vinegar, and another teaspoon of salt to get the balance right. But I'll put the final adjusted recipe in the description below so that you can get it right first time. At this point I was also a little bit disappointed with the lack of heat. I guess those supermarket habaneros weren't that spicy after all. But I've got a perfect solution to that. One big homegrown Trinidad Scorpion. This one pepper alone should be more than enough to give this sauce the kick that it needs. One final blend to mix everything together, and while I do that I'm adding in about 1/8 of a teaspoon of xanthan gum. This is optional, but it'll give the final sauce a nice glossy consistency and help keep it nice and stable. And again, this is optional but highly recommended for this particular sauce, passing it through a sieve so that the end result is nice and smooth. Now the flavour of this sauce will continue to develop over the next couple of days, so for now I'm transferring it into 3 clean bottles, and then I'll put it aside for a few days before having my first proper taste of the final sauce. And if you've seen many of my other hot sauce videos, you'll know for that first taste, it's time to bring out the dino nuggies. And that has turned out to be an incredibly tasty sauce. The flavour and the sweetness of the charred corn come through really strongly and are complemented beautifully by the cumin and lime juice. Just enough salt and acidity to keep everything in balance, a medium spicy kick, and an all-round thoroughly enjoyable flavour. I know that I'm going to really enjoy this sauce, and I hope that you do too. Click here to see another hot sauce video, and until next time, happy snacking.